Welcome to the Maintenance Mavericks Podcast, where we talk about trends in maintenance, reliability, and asset operations. My name is Ryan. I'm the CEO and founder of UpKeep, an asset operations management software. For today's guest, I'm super excited to welcome back Charli Matthews here on the show. Charli is the founder and CEO of Empowering Brands, a digital media company with a mission to connect, inform, and educate the pump system community through their online information connection hubs. Charli is also super passionate about empowering women and young professionals in the industry. In fact, she shows her support for this growing community through speaking engagements like this podcast right now and active participation with many groups, organizations to shine a spotlight in women in the trades. So really appreciate all of your help, all of your support in our maintenance community here. A little bit more about Charli's background. When she's not working or being interviewed by me, Charli enjoys listening and sharing social media tips, as well as spending time with her 3 very active children. Welcome to the podcast again, Charli. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's always a pleasure to spend time with you. Thanks for having me on. And, I'm feeling good being back. I took a little short break on interviewing. So it's wonderful to be on the other side, right? When you're being interviewed. So it's wonderful. Thanks for allowing me to be here.
Yeah, and obviously we had a great episode. I mean, it's probably been over a year now since we did the first one. But
I still get comments from it though, which is part of it lasts, so if y'all are thinking about doing an interview, you should. It just stays with, the industry, the community for a while, which is wonderful.
That's amazing, Charli. And obviously, you're getting comments about it because the knowledge that you shared, the conversation that we had, meant something to at least, several people within our industry. So really appreciate you taking the time. So if you haven't listened to Charli's first episode, go back and find it, listen to it. And if you want a quick refresher, why don't we kick off sharing a little bit more about yourself, your background, how you were first introduced into this field of maintenance and reliability, Charli?
I did share a little bit about this in my first episode, but I started selling advertising for a pump magazine, and that's what introduced me to the industry. But for reliability itself, it wasn't until I was listening to this audiobook on Don't Fix It, Improve It. And I loved the culture of reliability that I learned while listening to that. And so when I think about that and think how I really just embraced that industry, even though I didn't get to go to as many SMRP events as I would like to have, I did really fall in love with that industry and the understanding that it's, in every aspect of the world that we have, how we live every single day. We have to be more reliable in our equipment, in our personnel, in ourselves, in our thoughts. So I love it. I guess the introduction to me and what I do, I created a company called Empowering Pumps. It was a, media company where we share content for, industry people in, out there that are our industry experts or subject matter experts. Also our partners. Our partners are manufacturers that have amazing technologies to share. And so we just constantly push out this information to uplift, elevate, and empower the industry through knowledge. And as a nutshell, I think every time I introduce myself, I could say something a little different, but empowering is what we stand for. And we do that through digital media marketing services.
That's amazing. And you're kind of alluding to how maintenance reliability is not just in, physical fixed assets, but in every part of our, days and lives. So I kind of love that. So Charli, obviously you lead this company called Empowering Brands. One of your main responsibilities is to lead the vision for your team. So I wanted to engage with you in a conversation around how your strategy, how your vision has really gotten you to where you are today, and how leading that team, kind of like the ups and downs of leading your team, your strategy, your approach, how you engage with people that inspires them to do their best lives work, and ultimately why you've started an entire company to do this. We talked about like this strategy as a team sport, like empowering people to do their best lives work is a big component of what you do. Can you elaborate a little bit more on this approach and essentially the entire brand of You know,
Yeah. So if I can kind of explain this in a lot of ways, but I'll start with just thinking about, how we develop the business. And we think about your value proposition. If you are a business, you're trying to figure that out, right? And so it's, how are you better, faster, and stronger than your competitors, for example? And for us, we connect, inform, and educate. So each of those kind of line up. And when I developed the company, it was so that I had a job, and it expands outside of that. And so it is different. When I created it, whatever I want to do, let's go. We're building it. And this is so that I have a job. And really you only had to answer to your customers. And I built something that would help them and elevate them. And then fast forward and we have a team. And so I can't just go and create something that I want to do and throw all this work on my team without having their input. And I really want everybody to enjoy their job. I want them to be working on something that matters to them, that matters to the industry, because I think that that's where you find joy, and your mental health is good when everything that you're doing every day lines up to your values and what you're trying to accomplish. And so how do you manage that and figure out what, 7+ people, what their goals are and their strategies, and how does that all line up? So everybody has a different part to play. And when we look at that and really understand our strengths as an individual, we understand our teammates' strengths and what they're good at, then you can develop, what this company is going to look like. What areas of expertise do we need to bring onto our team, and how do we utilize our team and make them happy in their everyday work life, right? And so why I wanted to talk about strategy is because I was going through strategy development with my team. So we have an offset meeting, right? Offsite, or I'm not running it because I want to be a participant in this, right? I don't want to dictate which way the meeting is going or what we're talking about. And so we bring in an outside source to run this meeting for us. We all contribute. And I think we have to have an environment where I can sit back and listen to each person on my team and see, okay, what do we need to shift for the next year that incorporates maybe a struggle at a problem that we need to solve for our teammates. The other thing that I would say is, we have regular meetings with the team to hear them out. So it's not just a one-day event. It's a weekly commitment to listening to our team and checking in with them and seeing, what's their struggle for the week, or what's their celebration for the week, and really keeping a way to understand them as a person. I think is you can do that if you check in with your people. You can see literally on the screen, if not in person, how they're doing, how they're feeling, how their day is going. And if it's a bad day, you're going to need to address that. And if it's a good day, you're going to want to celebrate with them and really make a mental note that that's something that they enjoy. And how can we do more of that? And so that's why I think strategy is team sport, and, figuring out the best way to bring your team together and talk strategy. You got to understand your team and how they work. And for us, it's great to just shut off, go to a meeting for a day, a meeting room, have a little fun along the way, but just say, this day is for strategy and developing, the future of our company together.
It's a really good point that you bring up. I feel like in our industry, maintenance and reliability, it's so easy to get caught up in just the day-to-day. It's like every single day, it's something, there's a hair on fire problem, you go out, it breaks, you go out and fix it. And the next day you continue to do the same thing. And what I found is that oftentimes when you get into this mode, it's really difficult to take a step back and say, we're going to dedicate time to stop doing the same things we're continuing to do and really think holistically about the problem at hand and how we can better approach it. And so I'd be curious your thoughts, like what have you seen really good maintenance reliability teams do to really put that short-term plus long-term thinking at the same time?
Yeah, I think that's a good point that you made. I mean, you have to get out of the whirlwind, constant pressure of the day. I mean, you have to be able to step aside from that in order to think strategically. So sometimes that takes planning in advance, right? So you're planning that you're going to have, we'll call it, I hate to even use the word downtime, but what we're trying to do is just take a break from that every day. Maybe we plan some other people other than this kind of team that or management team that you're trying to put in place to go over and think strategically. How do you do it when you're in the whirlwind? I don't think you do it effectively if that's what you're trying to do. Set aside some days where you can think on the business versus in the business, I think is really important. So for maintenance and reliability teams, scheduling out, okay, we're going to have maintenance during this time, or we're going to have a strategy meeting to talk about all the things that seem to be breaking on a regular basis so that we can address that down the line. And get the feedback from other people, have feedback loops, if you will, to gain insight from everybody that may be out on the floor that can't be in this strategy meeting. How are you going to get that information? You've got to set those things up in advance. So it's not a one day, we just sit down and we haven't had to prepare for it. We have to kind of gather that information and make a plan to have some strategic thought time, which a lot of the times you have to work a little extra hard to get everything lined up where you can take a mental break. And that's okay. And so just make sure that, when you go into the room, virtual or in person, that you can turn off the whirlwind for the amount of time that you're in there to really, reset your mind to think on a strategy.
Oftentimes, that's kind of like the role of maintenance and reliability within an organization. What we've often seen is, a company gets to some size of, maturity level, and they say, okay, cool, let's hire a reliability team. They focus on strategy, maintenance team deals with the fires of the day to day. But oftentimes, it's not just maintenance does this, reliability does that, and focuses on strategy. But really, these things are super intertwined. And then you have the role of operations in there too, which is, even more intertwined with the production needs of literally hitting revenue goals today. And what we found is that like the best teams, the teams that operate the best are the ones that don't separate strategy from, execution, that really blend these three teams, maintenance, reliability, operations, the needs of right now, today, and tomorrow under one umbrella to really create a cohesive plan together.
I don't know that I could create a strategy that would be effective if I left off one of my teammates that's doing the work, right?
Yeah.
Like if they don't bring their job in to the strategy, then what are we there for? Because what we need is to make sure that we're improving all areas of the business. And if we just leave one essential part out, then we're not getting the full story, and therefore we're going to build something that's not going to work for them long term. And so we'll be back to the drawing board again, trying to figure out why is this not working when we've left off some of our team. So even if you don't understand it, so some of the times you're bringing in different categories or job responsibilities, and you're like, I don't really understand what they do over there. That's okay. It's okay to bring somebody in and not understand it, but that's why you're there. You can ask questions and really hear from them. And I think also, not understanding what makes somebody happy at work. If you don't ask the question of what's enjoyable to them or, what is not enjoyable to them, then you're just not going to know what you need to plan forward. And so I hope that everybody does make that time to allow input, even if they couldn't be in the room at that time, to really try to get to know all aspects of their business. Even if it doesn't interest you, you can still learn about it and you can still understand it so that you have empathy for that person and their role that they're trying to, work really hard for you every day. And you can kind of take a moment and try to learn a little bit more about their world.
I mean, it's such an interesting discussion because we're at this period in time where we talk about like diversity of thought, how important it is to have like different people around the table that are focused on different job responsibilities and how each person can have a very meaningful part of a discussion, even if that may not be their core responsibility, how they could have this different opinion. but
That's
have
right.
like really high impact to the ultimate success of any decision. But then we also go on the flip side of like, and I don't know if you feel it, but it just seems like every day is like meetings after meetings after meetings. And then the other question is like, how do you like balance this, like, the
Yeah, well, that's why I
coordination
said
aspect?
earlier that I brought somebody in to help like run the
Yeah,
meeting, because when you're running a meeting, you're not really listening and engaging, and you're running it, making sure it stays on task. But the flip side of that is, you can go on, and somebody can be like, I think it's time to move on now. Charli,
yeah.
stop talking. Let's move on to the next part of the plan that you have. These are the areas that we want to touch on, that we want to work through. And so again, do a little pre-work, have the strategy down for a meeting, executing a very effective meeting. But to your point, we don't want to just talk in circles. We don't want to listen to somebody go on and on about this terrible problem for hours. We want to say, okay, this is the problem. Let's hear from the other people in the room on what they think would be able to solve that problem. And then let's move on to the next thing and kind of circle back after we've had some time to think about it. And so I think that is a real point, though. It's about respecting everybody in the room. So if you're going on and on about your problem, you haven't thought about the other people. In the most, it's easy to do that. So having somebody that will say, okay, we've heard your concern, let's move on to the next stage of the meeting, and it's not being, your manager, so you don't feel like, okay, they don't care about me anymore. It's okay, we're just trying to get through the meeting here, of a more process oriented thought, which I think that's very helpful to use.
I really appreciate you sharing all of this knowledge around like how you think about strategy, how you think about engaging your team, making sure that you have, the full group buy-in to really, empower your team to do their best lives work. The way that we always kind of like end our podcast is with a quick fire set of questions where I give you a short question, hear your thoughts in 20 seconds or less, basically just to give our audience a few extra gold nuggets of information. You ready to jump in?
Yes, I'll do my best.
All right. What's the best advice a mentor ever gave to you?
It's not about you. Just tell them what they need to hear.
I love it. I love it. All right. How about the most significant turning point in your career? What happened and how did it start?
Yeah, I think the turning point in my career was when I was on the stage in Chicago, twirling a baton and, feeling like I was, on top of the world. I just created the Empowering Women in Industry event. And I realized that I could be myself, an entertainer, and still work in the industry and have a lot of fun. And so that really set me up for helping other people do just that.
That's amazing. Just be yourself. I love that. Be your most authentic self and you'll succeed. What types of experiences have really made you become an advocate for this industry? Like, what really made you be this advocate that you are today?
Yeah, I think it's the people and understanding the work that they put in so that our everyday lives can be, as comfortable as possible. I mean, if you think about the pump industry, which is where I started selling advertising. So I guess the media industry, marketing, advertising, it's hard to decide where I started. But when you get into that world and look at all of the equipment that has to be created and the technology and infrastructure that has to be set so that you can have water or food or energy, it's a no-brainer. I can be an advocate for that, and the people that get up at 4 a.m. to take care of me every day, it's easy to brag on them. And so I would say my experience is definitely just seeing the passion and working in this industry every day, hearing the stories. That's what motivates me.
I love that, Charlie. All right, what resources do you go to learn from to stay up to date with our ever changing industry?
I mean, empoweringpumps.com. I have to say that, don't I? But no, I definitely use the resources as far as maintenance and reliability. I love the maintenance community that y'all have created. It's wonderful. Also, just staying out and active on LinkedIn with all of our different manufacturing advocates and media sources out there. But yeah, my favorites, my team and my partners educating us over there, empowering pumps and equipment.
That's amazing. All right. Biggest takeaway you hope all of our listeners will learn from today's discussion.
I think that they should take time to have a strategy meeting to set up their business for success, their plant for success, their personal life for success. It takes time to put it on the calendar, to schedule a break for yourself and your team, so that they can have a mental break so that they can then reset and think strategy, because I think it's really important that we do have time to think about where we want our companies to go, the culture of our companies, and have a little fun with our teams. It's important.
I love that. Yeah, it's not, we could get so caught up in the grind of the day to day, but, taking that step back, 10,000 feet and ask yourself, why do we do what we do and how could we improve it is so impactful. And oftentimes you bring like 10 people in a room together and you don't realize that everyone has like 10 million amazing ideas that they've been bottling up because there's never been a great forum for it.
Yes.
All right, Charli, lastly, can you share with all of our listeners the different ways that they can connect with you and follow you on your journey?
Absolutely. Just Google Charli K Matthews. I'll show up. I'm on all the social media platforms. Check out empowering-brands.com. We've been putting out some really great leadership, social media tips, business strategy conversations. And so check that platform out. And yeah, you can email me, Charli at Empowering Pumps. You can send me a tweet at Charli K Matthews, and just, send me a reel on Instagram. These things are amazing. I've had so much fun lately creating these videos. So tag me is what I'm saying. You tag me or reach out and I'll be responsive.
I love it. Thank you so much, Charli, for joining us. Thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in today's episode of the Maintenance Mavericks Podcast. Again, my name is Ryan. I'm the CEO and founder of UpKeep. You can connect with me. I'm super active on LinkedIn, as Charli is. Or you can also shoot me an email at ryan@upkeep.com. I hope you all enjoyed listening to today's episode. I look forward to connecting with all of you soon. And thank you again, Charli. Until next time.
Thank you, Ryan. Always a pleasure to talk with you. Thanks.